early?
What?
Yep. Don't do that? Okay.
Some member of the public, did you get an email?
Okay, we won't start early.
Yeah, I think there's some areas.
You know what? I say we challenge Ray on one of these things. We're gonna start early.
We did challenge him on
What are you gonna do
something.
about it?
Yeah.
That's all right.
I think,
Call
you
cops.
know,
He doesn't have to.
otherwise you're kind of, you know, you're looking
It
at,
just means more work for him later on, at the other end.
Yeah,
Some specific things that might be easier.
I think we're gonna have to, table that discussion until we actually have the public hearing.
Unfortunately, but I think we can gather some basic information from other communities.
Mhm.
You know, I think that if you just look at,
I've actually started it, and I printed out a lot of, I've got like a
Right.
stack of charters
There you
like
go.
this high.
There's a lot of them available, it's amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, you can get data paralysis from it, you know?
Are you ready to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Do you want me to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Is,
What'd I do with it?
here, I think I have them here.
This is the meeting of October 4th?
Yeah, that was the mayor, that was the last meeting.
Yeah, it was just the mayor.
All right, fine.
I think I have them.
You know what we should do? You and I should do an agenda and disseminate it before the meeting.
Going forward, I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it says it's
Yes,
7 o'clock.
we're on the record.
I'll call this meeting to order. Secretary will read the minutes, please.
At our last meeting of the Charter Revision Commission of the City of Danbury was held on October 4th, 2007, in this room at the City Hall, Room 3C. Present at that time were Joan Mead, Ed Torian, Robert King, myself, Peter Bezade, Diane Cervello, Carla Morano, Paul Swanson, and Mary Cronin. That was our first session. At that meeting, Eric Gottschalk, Assistant Corporation Counsel for the City of Danbury, addressed us, and we discussed the role and purpose of a Charter Revision Commission, and we spent some time discussing the freedom of the ramifications of the Freedom of Information Act and certain statutory requirements regarding the Charter Revision Commission going forward. Also at that meeting, Mayor Boughton briefly addressed us, and he served as an ex officio member to initiate a discussion regarding officers. And if you all recall at that meeting, there were several unanimous votes. One, we unanimously voted Carla Morano chairman. We unanimously voted Robert King vice chairman. And for some reason, we unanimously voted Peter Bezade secretary. We also then approved the following. We approved the use of Robert's rules for the determination of procedure and conduct of our meetings. We agreed that we would hold a special meeting on October 22nd, 2007, and we also authorized the mayor to schedule the commission for another special meeting for holding a public hearing. Those were the minutes of October the 4th, I believe. Okay.
This is the last one.
Any corrections to them, October 4th minutes?
There was, I
Okay.
think in the October 4th minutes, as I recall, Peter, I meant to ask you about this. We had said something in there about the public hearing within 3 weeks of
We did.
October 22nd.
We did.
Does that have to be amended, now that that has changed?
No, because that's what we discussed.
Okay, thank you.
And we subsequently held a meeting on October 22nd, 2007, and that meeting was held here at City Hall in the council chambers. The start time for that meeting was 6 o'clock. In attendance were all the members of the commission. In addition, in attendance was Mary Comstock, whose nomination has not yet been voted on by the City Council. That was our second session. Mayor Boughton addressed us at that time, and he discussed with us the operation of the city charter and the city government, and he also answered questions from the commission. We had a brief discussion regarding the scheduling of the next meeting, a public hearing, and then we voted, again unanimously, to reject the motion to schedule a public hearing for Monday, December 3rd at 7 p.m., and then we authorized our chairman to schedule a public hearing after consulting with the mayor and the availability of a suitable location with the city clerk. And that's what we discussed, and we then adjourned.
Any corrections to that?
One addendum to that, should that include the resignation of Tom Green?
Well, we never really received his resignation as a commission. There was no letter to
So I
us.
was wondering about that. What,
Okay.
Rick, should we be?
It wouldn't be a matter for you anyway. Resignation effective when it's
Okay.
supplied to the town clerk. Not sure whether that's happened or not.
Any other corrections to the minutes? The only correction I'd say is we did not briefly discuss when the next meeting would be. It was rather extensive, it seemed to me, so. The minutes stand as read. Eric has reminded me that we need to take attendance. Do I need to do a roll call, or?
Do you want the secretary to do that?
Do you need a motion to
Why?
accept the minutes as read?
Yes.
Not according to Robert's rules, guys.
Actually, that's
No?
We
No.
do
As
not?
long as there's no corrections, then
Okay.
they stand as, that's
Okay.
what the secretary. read the
Sure.
roll, please.
This will be Joan Mead,
Here.
Ed Torian,
Here.
Robert King,
Here.
Peter Bezat is here, Diane Cervello,
Here.
Carlo Morano.
Here.
Paul Swenson.
Here.
Mary Cronin is excused.
Yes.
And Mary Comstock is present, but yet not a full member.
And not quite ex officio.
Okay, we're ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I believe there's no unfinished business before the commission at this point, so let's proceed immediately to new business. And I think the first item on the agenda is setting a schedule for future meetings, both for our calendars and for the calendars of others. And among the issues are going to be how often do we want to meet, and what days and times are the best. Do I have any motions or ideas for discussion?
I think it'd be appropriate if we could schedule for the next, say, through February. By that time, we'll have an idea of the direction as we're getting it from input from the mayor and others. So I think if we try to go through February, to try to go beyond that, I don't know, it may be premature at this time.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, do you think that, do we have any idea of how many meetings in toto that we might have to have?
Any-
I think that we would have to know how we're gonna go about reviewing and finalizing the charter before we know how much work is ahead of
Okay.
us.
I think in the last meeting, we had discussed possibly doing 2 meetings a month initially, and then adjusting from there,
Okay.
whether we need to do a lot more or a lot less. So,
I did have, before this meeting, a discussion with the city clerk, who is intimately involved with scheduling meetings, at least for the council, in terms of availability of facilities in City Hall, this room and other rooms, including the council chamber. And she advised me something that I think most of us knew, that Mondays and Fridays seem to be the best days for availability of facilities in City Hall, these rooms. And she said that if we could stick to those days of the week, we would pretty much avoid most conflicts, and people then would have to schedule around us. There is no long-term schedule going forward because of the election that was last week. There's going to be a new council, and they will set a new schedule, but they have a tradition of meeting on Tuesdays and caucusing on Mondays. But I don't think that will interfere with us using this particular room, room 3C, and any other room we might want to use in City Hall.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to have the council chambers, right?
That's, other than maybe for a public hearing, I don't see why we would need the council
Isn't there
chamber.
a suggestion to use that room because of the TV camera accessibility in that room?
Yes, there was. I mean, I could imagine us doing our public hearing, or if we expect a large attendance at anything, we'd want to use the council chambers, but I don't see why.
and we could do that with a special meeting if we needed to change dates or move it into that room. Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Congratulations.
Congratulations. So,
Could
Could we get a motion to meet?
How about we meet, set a schedule for every other month, or for the first and second Mondays of every month?
first and second?
That's the 2 weeks.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Okay. You know,
We can just-
before we do that, we should discuss the Monday holidays.
Thank you, Mary. Let's
There are
discuss
no
that.
holidays.
You know.
This is charter revision. Holidays are banned.
There are no holidays.
So let's go over Mondays where we've got conflicts.
There's always Fridays, and we can divert back to
Oh, yeah, that's a
Fridays.
really good idea.
Okay.
24th and the 31st.
Yep. I would think that it would be safe for us to say that December, after our public hearing, is probably not a productive time
No.
to have meetings, that we probably should start in January.
I tend to agree with that.
Okay, we have one scheduled for December the 3rd now. with-
That's correct.
with,
After that.
We could start on January, well, let's see, like you said, the 21st is Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
So
But
we'd go
if
like
we're
the 7th
looking
and
at-
28th.
If we're looking at the 14th.
14th and 28th.
Yeah.
14th and 28th.
14th and 28th?
How's that?
Okay?
Everybody?
Sounds good.
14th and 28th?
Yeah, we'll formalize
For
this as a
January?
motion in a second, but,
Okay.
but we think
Okay.
both of those
No.
dates work.
All right, so let's go into February.
7 PM. Peter?
Yes, 7 PM.
That's good for everyone.
It's February 11th and 25th?
President's Day is the 18th.
Yes.
So we're good there?
11th and 25th?
Okay.
Now, do you want to schedule beyond that tentatively, or not even look beyond February at this point?
Well, we can go into March.
I think
if
the
we're doing this.
advantage of making a regular schedule for the meetings is the notice issue.
Mhm.
It doesn't require a,
Would be the March 10th and 21st.
Sounds cool.
So, March
Then it would go to the 10th. and
10th and 24th,
okay.
then April 14th and 18th. I'm sorry, 14th and 28th. That,
When's Easter?
That's Sunday before, the 23rd.
23rd.
Okay.
so the fact is, we can miss all the major, so far, we haven't
Just,
had a
we
problem.
skipped over the one,
St. Patrick's.
so we're on the 14th and 28th of April? Is that right?
14th and 28th.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
know
in
what?
effect, it's second and fourth Monday, so it'll be
Right.
pretty easy. Do we want to go through June?
Why don't we just set the whole thing that way?
Okay.
You know?
So
Set it to
May
work.
would be the 12th and the 26th. The
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day is the 26th.
So we might want to skip that and
Yep.
just do 2 days in June.
Yeah, I expect we'll be wrapping up by then anyway.
You hope, huh? I see this thing going to the late
Listen
hours
to him.
on December the 31st, Carl.
Joan, get these
Take this
people on.
responsibility
now-
seriously.
Memorial Day.
This is May and the 26th. so-
Okay.
And
And then what does,
then the 9th and the 23rd.
Where are we in June?
June 9 and 23.
Okay.
So twice a month, 10 will be the set schedule at this point,
Except for May.
Mhm.
except for May.
Okay. And then we can move forward from there, or what?
Yeah.
And we can move forward from there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So,
Chairman,
one meeting.
Eric,
in order to comply with the Freedom of Information Act, you should set your schedule of regular meetings for the upcoming year.
So
And
you-
and file that with the town clerk
okay.
in January.
Okay. let's
So
just
you're
run
right
through
on
it.
time in order to meet that filing deadline, but you should go through the whole year.
Okay.
oh, we should. That's, even if we don't plan on doing it the whole year.
He's
We
trying
can
to wrap
cancel.
this up before his Italy
All right,
trip.
fine.
Done.
I'm saying, I'm retired and I got lots of time. for it.
When-
That's what
Carl,
I'm
when are
hearing,
you going to Italy?
guys.
Anybody going away this summer?
No, we're all doing
We're all
charter
going to
revision.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're doing charter revision for this summer.
We're in July,
Yes,
gentlemen.
Joan.
Joan,
Ladies,
what did you get me into?
7 and
If
21.
we decide to
When is
change
it?
the
7 and
meetings
21.
to
7 and
once a
21?
month,
Wait, what month are you in?
I'm in July.
July.
we just amend the
Um,
schedule, that's it.
Or we cancel
Okay.
a meeting and just, yeah.
7
Okay.
and 21.
Just amend the.
7 and 21 July?
okay.
The only difference there is that is now the first Monday in July, and we had been the second and
Right.
fourth.
Yeah, we started that in June, didn't we?
You
So-
don't want
We
to,
did.
you don't want to meet on Bastille Day?
So
No, June is the 9th and the 23rd.
June is 9th and the 23rd.
June is 9th and 23rd, July
7th and July 21st, is that?
Well, that's the first and third Monday all of a
Okay.
sudden instead of the
That's the
second and
second
fourth.
and
Does that make a
fourth.
difference to anybody?
I sort of like the second and fourth, if we can do
Then-
that. It
then-
just seems there's a little bit of
Then
consistency.
Let's do the 14th and the 28th.
That'll work. I'll just bring my wife for our anniversary dinner here then.
There's some
in-
confidence
in-
there, huh?
Yeah. In August,
Do we have to get gifts
No, I think you're gonna have to
Okay,
get a
so now
little.
we're gonna go to
bit-
August.
Now
Okay,
we're 11
we're
and
on
25.
August will be
25.
11 and 25.
Okay.
It will be in Tuscany, so.
Wait a minute,
That's
the-
why we have a vice
25th
chairman, isn't it?
The
And
25th
we may
is
be there,
the
too.
death of Washington's mother.
Yes,
There's gonna be a quorum over there.
yes, we'll all
All
be
right,
over
so
in Italy.
September.
Just
8 and
perfect.
22. No?
No, I can't do those, either of those dates.
September 8th or the 22nd?
No, I can't. I apologize for that.
7 PM, 8 and 22nd?
I can't be there, but we can schedule that if you want.
Let's schedule it as a regular and.
Okay, and we'll go from there.
Which one of those can't you make, Peter?
Neither.
Neither one of them.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're going to Italy too.
No, I wish it were.
Octo-
Conflict.
October.
13th is a Monday.
And it's a
All
Columbus
right,
Day.
Columbus
Oh, that's
Day.
Columbus Day, so that's our first
So we
conflict.
go, no, we
So
go
why don't we just
6th
do
and
one
20th.
meeting in October then for that month?
It'll just be,
You know.
yeah, it'll be a look back at all that we
Right.
accomplished by then anyway.
Do you want to do it on the
Pictures of
6th then?
Tuscany.
You want to do it on the 6th,
why
and
don't
then
we-
if we need one on the 20th, we can call it, as opposed to scheduling it for the 20th?
Lynn, why are you shaking your head?
Okay, all right.
I agree with him, you should schedule it, it's easy to cancel.
Yeah.
October
We're
6th.
scheduling
October
the
6th.
The page begins.
Okay.
So October 6th, and what's the second one? Do we want to go back to the 4th?
It would be the 20th of October, if we
Well,
want to
Has to be
schedule
the
two.
20th. he's
But
right.
but now we went to the first and the third Mondays in October.
Yeah, and then we can go back November, the same thing we had been doing.
Okay.
Except you can't.
In November 10th and 24th,
Right.
what's election day there?
Oh, wait a minute.
When's election?
The 24th, that week is
Tuesday.
Thanksgiving
Be
week.
the 4th, November 4th will be election day.
Mhm.
So that's the 10th, Mary?
The 10th and the 24th.
Okay, and then we should pack it in.
If we're not done by then,
Well,
right?
that leaves December for us to write the report. How does that report get written? Do we write that, or does the,
Well, you just give
does
it
your
to
staff
Peter?
write it, or what?
Well,
Did you hear that?
the statute doesn't say who writes it.
Right.
It sounds like legal counsel for the city of Danbury.
Legal
I
counsel for the
imagine
commission.
We would have a hand in helping to do that.
Okay.
Have to go through it.
Yeah,
All right.
because I think the language and everything, and we, of course, we,
What were the 2 dates in November? Did we check them?
10th and 24th.
Did you write all these down?
I've got them all written.
got them all.
Okay, so we are not scheduling then in December at this point? We're
Correct.
gonna- Okay.
Why don't we schedule a December 8th? And it will be done for the year. Terrific.
Fine,
Okay,
that's fine.
that's a second.
Do we need to have another public,
We need to have one,
just one?
two, actually two,
Well,
but
part
we
of
need
that-
to have one to get into the substantive discussions.
Right,
Yeah.
and then we need to have another one.
Correct.
Yeah. But we need to discuss that to see how.
I think we're gonna have a little discussion about meetings soon.
Yeah, and how we
right?
want to organize them and things. So that'll be next. But so this is our calendar. Can I get this in the form of is there anything else that needs to be added to this as far as the motion? Then may I get?
Well, other than the location being City Hall
That's
in
right.
an available room.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it'll be here if it's available.
right.
Okay. May I get that as a motion, please?
So moved. That
Okay.
we
So-
adopt our calendar as previously discussed.
So
Okay.
the adopted calendar would read, first meeting would be December 3rd, which is our public hearing, our first public hearing. And then we would meet January 14th and 28th, February 11th and 25th, March 10th and 24th, April 14th and 28th, May 12th, June 9th and 23rd, July 14th and 28th, August 11th and 25th, September 8th and 22nd, October 6th and 20th, November 10th and 24th, which is my anniversary, just,
Yeah, well, sure, you're just down there.
and December 8th. The meeting's to be held in City Hall at 7 PM.
Okay.
So I have a motion made by Mrs. Mead. Do I have a second?
Second.
Diane? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have a calendar.
Right.
Very
Peter,
good.
you'll get all those posted just so that you don't go to jail and stuff over that kind of an issue.
Thank you.
You need this?
I don't.
Okay. Does anybody have another topic of discussion they'd like to bring up?
Are you looking right at me?
I'm looking right at you,
Okay,
Peter.
fine. It's interesting. We all might have different ideas on how to approach revising the charter. And I took some time and I looked through the materials Rick provided with us in our very first meeting. And I looked at some other materials and some other statutes and took a glance at some charters of municipalities that are similar, what I thought were similar in size and complexity to Danbury. And this could be a very daunting and difficult task procedurally. When I did talk to Carlo, we had a little meeting at my office, and I talked to Bob a little bit about this. And I think that we're going to need a lot of help from people who have worked and served in city government, have served at different either elected or non-elected positions in city government, and have an idea of the workings of the charter from that point of view. We're probably going to need some input from people who are concerned about city government, who follow it. It'd be nice to get some input from some other people. And frankly, I think that I would envision that not only would we have public hearings, but we might want to, as a commission, extend invitations to people to come and address us at a regular meeting, and maybe start a regular meeting with a little dialogue with someone who served city government or in the past, someone who's been who's been interested in the past, somebody we think could add to our debate and our discussion as to areas that might need to be looked at, or ideas on how to rework the charter. I think that as a commission, that might be an approach we might take. It would add to our dialogue, recognizing, however, that you can listen and get a lot of different views along the way and not decide anything, and I don't intend that. So.
I agree with that approach. Included in the guest, I would suggest that we look at some of the departments in the current administration, and we may want to bring some of those department heads in and get their perspective as to how they interface with the Common Council and with the mayor's office. One of the things, and I want to avoid discussing specifics because of we're not having the first public hearing, but one of the areas of concern, and I'm not sure it should be addressed by this commission or not, but let me just toss it out, let's run around, is I see the span of control for the mayor. I become concerned that one person has so many people reporting to him. In all the organizational structures that I've been involved with, there should be, I think, a little different set of organizational parameters here that is not covered in his chart here. I think he has too many people. I think we've been very fortunate. You and I have talked in the past that we've had very qualified people. But as we look ahead to the city of Danbury, we may not be so fortunate. And that's the area of concern that I have, that if a person doesn't have those organizational skills, is there something that we ought to be looking at within the charter that would provide for a different structure? Or does that lie outside of our thing?
That may be a charter discussion, so let's not go too much further down that road.
Exactly.
But what you're saying is that may dictate who we might want to invite in.
Right,
As far as
exactly.
city officials.
Okay.
So invitations to others would be former administrations, I guess, possible people working for the city now. Any other comments as to how you see our meetings being run?
I think there are three groups that folks who are historically connected to the charter, the present users, and then the public.
Mhm.
And I think we should maximize exposure of the committee to those three groups. So we know what's been present users and maybe the public in terms of, I really think we should start each meeting with giving the public some sort of chance to address us.
Mhm.
But I think we also gotta maximize the number of public hearings that we can have to allow those three groups to address us.
So besides it being a big public hearing, you're recommending that we might invite people to address us before the official meeting
I have no problem with that.
begins?
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes, and then Joan.
If we were gonna set up the email to receive comments from the public, maybe we could have a portion of each meeting just going over comments that have been received from the public, throughout the process. So it's a way to get their input even if they're not, even if we're not having a hearing.
Okay. Bring me back to that, because I'm not sure how to set our agendas, and that's gonna be part of it. Bob's gonna have ideas, Peter's gonna have ideas, you're gonna have heard somebody's email ideas, Paul's gonna, and I wanna talk about that, but
Now, my suggestion went along with this whole idea of having the public speak to, but what we could do is do something like other commissions do and set like the first 10 minutes before the official meeting begins for any members of the public to address the commission. I mean, with any concerns that they had before the actual meeting begins.
Good idea.
so that we would have public time up front, and we would set some parameter, whether we
Right.
limit amount of time each person can
Right.
speak, because I wouldn't want one person to
Right.
use up all the time. Okay. Anything else, Ed? Any questions or comments on that?
I have just questions
Sure,
for
Peter.
our legal advisor.
Yep.
Okay. In terms of having a dialogue with somebody, I think that we do not run afoul any requirements of FOI by inviting somebody to come talk to us, and then having questions and answers, more or less. I mean, we could question this person regarding his experiences or her experiences with the charter. Would that be
The
correct?
Freedom of Information Act doesn't describe anything along these lines, neither a permission or a prohibition.
Okay.
The act only requires that the public be given an opportunity to see what you're doing and to read public records, inspect public records.
Okay.
So really, the question that you're asking relates more to Robert's Rules of Order than
Okay.
to the Freedom of Information Act.
Fair
And what
enough.
Roberts provides is that you have rules, and the rules contemplate participation only by members of the body. But you can always suspend the rules to permit a dialogue or a presentation by someone from outside of the body.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Along with we discussed maybe the possibility of having briefings to the common council of this. Is that worth bringing up?
Let's do that. Let's solve my problem, which is how do we want to run our meeting? And then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So
Fair.
what I think I heard was public session at the beginning, so that anybody with any ideas can address us. Is that
With the time limit.
with a time
Right.
limit? And maybe the right thing to do would be to time limit per person, with the ability to say, you know what, there's 80 people here, so this isn't a full public hearing, so we've got
Well, we
that.
could leave that to the discretion of the chair based on what our agenda is and the number of people who are present.
Wise point.
Okay, so if we did that, how do we then decide what we're going to discuss? Ed?
Just a question, would that person steps up to give their thoughts, would we have a chance to have any dialogue, or is that just a
Well-
one-way street, or
Well, I think that we got our answer just a few seconds ago from...
suspend the rules?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like it not, I would be uncomfortable just not responding at all, but we also don't want to have a debate, because we are going to have an agenda, I suspect, and if we get off into something for 45 minutes, going back and forth, that isn't what it's supposed to do. I see the public session being more to give us ideas that will become future agenda items, so that someone says, we think that, Carlo should be elected president of the city, and then that'll become a future agenda item, not to be debated then and there. So first thing we do is a public session. We'll talk about that a little bit. How do we want to determine what we're talking about when? How do we set the agenda? So the mayor's going to give us a bunch of ideas, I think, on the 3rd. I assume members of the public are gonna come with a bunch of ideas. How do we then determine what do we want to discuss and when? And kind of prioritize them so that when you come into a meeting, we may have a chance with an upfront agenda that you're gonna sit there and look and say, okay, tonight we're talking about what we do with the lake. Tomorrow night, we're talking about what we do with soccer fields, or whatever the issues may be. Mary?
Could we coordinate that with who's invited to speak to us?
Well, that's gonna be part of it. So part of it's gonna be, we need to set our priorities and figure out
Figure out who
who
we're
should,
inviting.
yeah, because we can
Match 'em
talk.
up with the topic.
Yeah.
But really, what we're talking about is what scope we want to have as a commission. I mean, how much we want to address. And we really can't do that until we're allowed to sit down here and substantively find out what we have on our collective minds.
So maybe that'll be after the public session, and as time goes on, we're gonna get ideas. What occurs to me is, the mayor was talking, he brought up that issue of money that he can just do without bonding or something. He had an issue there. Well,
Okay.
that's gonna affect the city's bonds. We can make all the decisions and say, sure, it ought to be raised, but if it's gonna affect the bonding of the city, we're gonna need to hear from the bonding people
Right.
or the city finance department, and I'd like, for the meeting to be efficient, I don't wanna sit here, have us talk about it and then say, well, we don't have all the facts, so I guess that's going to another meeting. So I'd
Yeah.
like our meetings to be as efficient as possible, but trying to figure out ahead of time who should be here to talk to us about this topic and to take our questions and things.
I just had like a general procedural, how I was envisioning it going, and maybe everyone has a different idea, but on the handouts for the original meeting, there was this model city charter that was handed out, and I figured since the charter hasn't been looked at since 1988, maybe we could just, modernize it to this 2006 version, and then as the topics fit into each section, we would review that section by section, but then we would incorporate whoever was speaking at that meeting, or whatever the public wanted us to address, but we would modernize the whole charter according to this, and then fit the pieces in as we go chunk by chunk.
I understand that, but I'm going to ask Rick a question. Rick, this procedure, we as a body, we agree and we come up with some document. What happens after that? We submit it to, I want you to review for us once again, what happens with our work and where it goes.
Your work goes back to the Common Council. The Common Council holds a public hearing. They discuss your proposals, and they have the opportunity to submit recommendations for changes. You then meet again, you supply a final report, and then the Common Council acts on that by either they can vote no, they can vote yes, and they can vote yes in pieces. So the possibilities are that they will accept all of your work, none of your work, or some of your work. And then they have the further decision to make regarding how this weeding out process then goes to the public for a vote and when.
So you're afraid if we revise the whole thing, it'll be just too complex to figure out what changes have been
Well,
made?
I think that's like a substantive issue that we'll all have to sit down and talk, but my inclination would be that, big change may not pass.
I've
you
just
know.
been looking at other city charters like you have, and like Norwalk is about this thick because they did it in such a patchwork fashion that you have to figure out, it's so complicated to read. So I just didn't
It's a
want us
ball.
to get like
Norwalk's
that.
a ball.
Maybe a place to begin is to hitchhike on what Paul said. What has happened in the past. If we look at the material that Rick handed out to us of prior commissions, I've looked through those, and there's some good ideas that are not incorporated into the current charter. So if each of us took that information and looked at it, maybe that's an area for us to start, before we even, meet with, on the 3rd, to get familiar with, is that something that we want to pursue? Example, the typo and the
alleged typo.
Yeah. Well, they're in there somewhere. Those have already been incorporated into this document, but have they
changes
been?
have been. Okay.
Right, the changes. Is it officially into here? Or do we have to make that as part of this group's effort to correct all the typos and things like that via a motion and stuff like that. Is that what we would have to do?
The final report from 1977, for example, contained language that
Mhm.
never was accurately reflected by the Congress.
Right.
But the law, the applicable provisions of charter law are those that were adopted by the Charter Revision Commissions, approved by the council, and then approved by the voters. So regardless of how that, regardless of what's reflected in that document or on the city's website, what controls is what was voted on by the people. So there are still some errors in there, by the way. Yeah.
Over and above what you shared with us?
But you don't have to correct them, you just have to be aware of them.
Okay, so we don't have to take any action on it?
No, with respect to the 27 errors,
Right.
I'm in the process now of trying to get them corrected on the website. I'm going to encourage the mayor to correct the remaining errors in that document. But that's an administrative task.
So
It's
we don't
not something that you need to do. It was already done by the 1977 Charter Revision.
Okay.
That was gonna be an easy accomplishment for us.
absolutely.
One, we wanna do the typos, and two, we were gonna leave one mistake just so we'd have a legacy for others, so.
My intention,
Thanks.
when I gave you that list of 27 errors, was just to remind you not to believe everything you read.
Yes.
Got it.
If you want to believe what you read, go back to the original final reports of those charter revision commissions. That's what they approved. That's what the public voted.
Paul, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, I, in my mind, I envisioned us, number one, advertising to the public in those three major groups that I picked out. Let them know that we're here and we're looking for their input. And then having 3 public hearings, not necessarily, corresponding to the groups, but giving everyone a chance, 3 public, and then from that, we can take then we can, because part of the charter revision is what we all think as a group, not just what we get from the outside. And so I thought, once we had those, quote, 3 public hearings, then we would then tackle the global look at what we are gonna tackle. What is gonna be our scope? Where is our, what was our focus going to be? Because we have to, A, keep it relatively simple, or else we're gonna end up like Norwalk. And B, we may not have the time. If we get too ambitious, I think, then we lose the cause. So my thought was, and I always break it down for advertise so they know we're here, and then have the public hearings and let them come to us. And then from there, and I like the public discourse at the beginning of each meeting, because then we can use that as our, maybe we want to invite someone in, or not invite someone, or do whatever we want to do and be flexible that way. But, and again, that's just what the thought I had.
Okay, where does that bring us? Can I get a motion on running our meetings then?
Well, do we need to formalize it that much by a motion?
If,
The chair can call for a motion
He can.
and see what happens.
Okay. Go ahead. Call for a motion.
The motion I would call for is that we start each meeting with a public session. I'm sorry, that we start each meeting taking comments from the public, that we would limit the time period to 5 minutes per person, are you shaking your head here?
No, so go ahead, make the motion. I'm sorry.
5 minutes per person, not to exceed 40 minutes at the beginning of a meeting, at the discretion of the chair, and that after that, we would have agenda items that we would take in due course.
Could I suggest one possible revision to that?
Absolutely.
And take out the maximum time and make it at the discretion of the chair?
And you're gonna make me stop people.
Yes.
I told you that's my weakness. but I will be diligent.
I think that's what Peter was saying earlier. You know,
Okay.
Don't put a time limit on it.
Yeah, that's
Make it
fine,
your
and I can
make it
do
your
that.
judgment.
Does the 40 minutes include any presentations from outside, or is that separate?
No.
That'd be separate.
If people wanted to make presentations, I would invite them to come see me and put them on an agenda.
Okay.
I think that's the way to do
The
it.
40 minutes and the 5 minutes.
So if we invited
Right.
people from other departments in the
your-
city,
your
that wouldn't be part of the.
Right.
It wouldn't be the public speaking, that would
That
be an
wouldn't be
agenda item, that would
better
be hearing
leave
from
it open-ended,
so-and-so
no.
from.
Yeah.
What's your concern?
My concern? I would like to leave the whole minute thing out of it.
Leave it out entirely.
Per
Just say
person,
that we're gonna
per
start-
meeting, and we're going to start and just leave and your motion should just be limited to, we all agree that there should be public input before each
Before
and
each
every
meeting.
one of our meetings.
Okay.
And
I
if
can-
the public wants
I'm
to
happy with-
participate.
I'm happy with that. Will someone so move it?
So moved.
Paul? Second?
Second.
Joan? Any discussion on that brilliant motion?
Well, we've accomplished something.
Yeah, all in
Right.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, the motion is passed. Okay. Any other thoughts on how we want to establish and run our meetings?
As we look at priorities and we look at all of this information that's going to be coming into us, and as we decide to tackle one item or an issue versus another, how do you want to go about making that decision? Do you want to make that, at the lead of the chair, or would you prefer a simple majority vote on the part of the commission, or what? I think that would help narrow the thing down if we have some consensus among us as to the things we want to tackle. It's not to say the other things would be eliminated, but it would establish some priorities for that evening. Sound right?
As chairman, I will tell you, my sense is I would like to, anything that gets brought up, I would like to bring it on as an agenda item.
Mhm.
And part of it would be, the scheduling would be, one, by importance, but two, by the availability of the people we think we need to be here. So if someone comes to us in public session and says, I think the charter should include this, we may need to go to council or the mayor or someone and say, who should tell us more about this and what the implications of this are? And it may be scheduled on, May 12th, because on that date, we can get the insurance people here and the bonding people here and the treasurer's office here. And I think I would be inclined to do it that way, and I, as chairman, would not leave anything that wasn't at least discussed, even if it was, any ideas. And I think we might get a better feel once we have the public session, and once we start hearing from people. And we need to do our homework, and the sooner people can start putting together lists of things they would like to start going after, then we can start putting together the list of people that ought to be talking to us about it. So I see it as being done on the fly, based on the best ideas we have.
Well, then the input from us, do you want to set a specific schedule that when you'd like to have the input from the commission?
I had some thoughts about that right after our public meeting, our first meeting after that, what we might want to do is take a look at the charter and look at the 8 different chapters of it, and just go through broadly the chapter headings and see what correlates with what the public has said and what we might want to look at and tackle, and do it in an orderly fashion rather than here, there, and everywhere.
Could we do that on December 3rd, do you think? Joe?
No, I don't think we can do that on the 3rd. I would like to leave that for the public, and then from there, on our next meeting.
And we have almost a month in between the
Right.
hearing and the first meeting.
We can
so-
have some ideas on what the public has said, and then we can each go through this, make our own notes about what we think is important, come back with this document, and then tackle it one chapter at a time and see where we want to spend.
Okay, and maybe at the chair's discretion at the 14th, if we can have some people come to address specific issues, we will maybe meet with the executives of the commission, and we'll come up with agenda items based on timing and ideas that we have, knowing that it's gonna change. Because someone coming the 3rd meeting we have may have an idea that gets us all revved up. And
But I think that the first meeting in January, we could probably get a list from the public hearing as well as from the people in the commission, what items we want.
what should we be looking at, and
Yeah.
start to break those down.
And we'll have some of that input on the third.
And we'll have a
from the
bunch of that
public.
input on the third. I think it goes without saying that if the mayor's got some ideas, we can get started working on at least some of those on the third, and anything else that we may hear. Okay?
Okay, I understand that on the 3rd, there's also, there's going to be a special meeting of the council of the city of Danbury that evening as well. So the mayor will be available for us, but I don't know if members of the council
Wait, the mayor will or will not?
will be available.
Okay, so, yeah, because he's
Late,
making a
right.
presentation at that.
He's
meeting.
first, but I don't know if members of the council will be there. I know we do know there's a few who expressed a great desire to come and address us.
Mhm.
So I don't know if they'll be available that night. Hopefully, the mayor will be he'll be done, and we can listen to them. I mean, that would be the ideal.
If an elected official wants to come talk to us,
They're welcome to come.
are they an agenda item, or do they come in the public session at the beginning of the meeting?
Well, we would leave it to the discretion of the chair for how long we want to listen to input from the public or anyone else.
Okay. You have a lot of faith in the discretion of some knucklehead, so. Okay.
Don't put down our chair.
I'm sorry. I impugned your votes. Anything else? So, we have our meetings, we have a calendar set, we have an idea of what the meetings are going to look like, the public's speaking to us first, and then we're gonna, on the fly, be working with our agenda. Anything else that we need to be talking about?
I don't believe so. John?
I don't want something to say on the fly. I want some organization.
Fine. So after we have our public hearing,
Right.
Yeah.
we will have an idea of what we should discuss on our agenda.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Every meeting, I expect that we're gonna have a delineated
Specific
agenda.
agenda.
Because I don't wanna have something on the agenda and find out we've gotta go talk to 6 other people. So when I say on the fly, it's like, I don't know what's gonna be at the
Okay.
14th or the 28th. But before the 14th and the 28th, we'll have some idea of what it is we're discussing.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Now,
Sounds good.
a couple more questions. I think, Rick, you instructed us as to when, if we should meet informally. If I send an email to Carla, that's just a communication between the two of us, is that correct? If I disseminate an email to the entire commission, that's in a different category altogether, is that correct?
That's correct. Once you have a quorum of the Charter Revision Commission meeting or exchanging communications, that constitutes a meeting under the Act. And you have notice requirements to create record of votes, to create minutes, and all of the requirements that go along with the Act.
So why I bring that up is we have to be careful among ourselves how we discuss ideas.
Mhm.
I mean, isn't that really what it comes down to? We just can't just hit that send button and disseminate it to everybody on the commission.
That's correct.
Okay.
And really, those conversations should be here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, were you going to set up emails through City Hall for everybody?
I'm going to try.
Okay. So that we will have an official email center, so that you shouldn't be getting them from me and have to figure out, should I be opening them? And they will be all commission related.
Great spam sender.
Yeah. Okay. Peter, any other questions?
I have no other questions.
Anything else? Can I have?
How are we gonna, how are people gonna know to come on December 3rd?
Well, that's a great question. It's going to be advertised in the News Times in the legal section, which very few people will see. It will be posted in the City of Danbury's webpage under meetings. I don't think, in terms of the general public, the public who, the great mass of people who wander around Danbury and not unaware, they'll find out about it, just like any other meeting, but it will meet its statutory requirements.
Is it also posted on the bulletin board downstairs?
I will talk to Jimmy about that. I think he's in charge of putting things outside, right? You don't.
It ought not to be left to the janitor to make that decision.
No, I'm going to ask him to put it. It's my decision to give it to him.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
Okay.
But I understand that that's how it gets done. Is that correct? Okay.
And let's encourage people to come to the meetings. That's, I think, the best ideas we'll get will be from people coming, so.
Should the chair meet with maybe someone from the News Times to let them know?
Really? Does anyone know who the reporter would be that would be covering this? And I'll give them a call.
What reporters? No, I'm sorry.
Call the editor.
Okay.
You could probably release a statement through the press, is that, through the
Write up a statement and send it in.
editor.
I'll call the editor. I'll let them write the statement.
And, there's nothing to stop any of us from telling anybody you think who might be interested that there is a public hearing.
Sure. Yeah. And there will be follow-up times for people. There
Okay.
will be other opportunities to speak to us. Okay. Any other points, questions, concerns? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made, seconded. Joan, thank you.
Sure.
Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, kids.
Eugene Driscoll is the reporter for the
Eugene
city.
Driscoll.
Eugene,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
the reporter for the city. He's the city governor.
That's right.
But should we go directly to the, to the editor or whoever?
You can, but he's the reporter for the
Oh,
city,
yes.
so,